Hi guys, it's Emily with Mid-Columbia Fisheries Enhancement Group, and welcome to another week of our salmon lessons. This week, however, we're not going to be talking about salmon, but we're going to be talking about salmon's best friend, the beaver. And here to help me, I have Mr. Barkley the Beaver, which is a taxidermied beaver. So Barkley is real. He's not alive. He once was alive, but he lived a very good, long life. And then once he passed, he was donated to us and was taxidermied, and now he gets to be here to teach you guys about beavers. So you might be wondering why beavers and salmon are friends and how they even would be friends, but it all comes down to habitat, or where animals live. So beavers create the perfect habitat for our salmon to live, especially our salmon in the fry life cycle stage, which is the stage they're at now in your guys' tanks. So I don't know if you guys know a lot about beavers, so we're going to go over some beaver facts. Beavers are the largest rodent in America. So other rodents are like rats or hamsters. Do you guys know of any other rodents? Mice are rodents too. And so when you think of rodents, some characteristics might stick out to you. So first, I like to think about rodents. I always think about the teeth, right? Beavers have really big teeth, which is a really characteristic of a rodent. And I'll get my camera a little bit closer so we can see better. So here we can see Barkley's beautiful smile. And so we can see that he has these really long two front teeth. And you guys can see that the color of those teeth are orange. So beavers are also known for building dams, right? And they build those dams out of wood and they chew all that wood down. So you can imagine how strong your teeth have to be in order to chew down a tree. So the orange in these teeth is actually iron, which is a metal. And that's what causes it to be orange. So their teeth are like as strong as metal, which they have to be in order to cut down those really big trees. And I guess we'll just go over the full anatomy, or like the parts of a beaver. So we can see that they have two front little hands. Their front hands are small. They have really long nails on them. They're not webbed, however, and they have, he's a little old, like I said, but they have like 5 fingers, and it's almost like they have a thumb, but it's not a thumb. Beavers, you can see he has 2 eyes. They're relatively small compared to the size of his whole head, and beavers and other rodents are notorious for not having the best eyesight. So these guys don't see very well. They have little tiny ears on each side that are able for him to hear. And then we can go down, we can see that he has a very big body. So Barkley is a big boy, and so he has 2 coats of fur. So this first coat is wiry, kind of like if you guys have ever felt like a horse or like a wire hair dog. It's kind of coarse, it's not very soft. But underneath that coarse fur, there's a layer of very, very fluffy fur, which is so soft. And that outer fur is what keeps them dry, and that under fur is what keeps them warm. And now we'll move down to Barkley's feet. So his bottom feet here, he has 2 very large bottom feet. The feet are webbed, so that way he can swim faster. They have toenails on him, and that is what's going to make him move through the water really nice and fast. Also, that what makes him move through the water nice and fast is a really big flat tail. So beavers are also known to have really long tails. And their tail isn't just for like using it as like a paddle to kind of get what direction they want to in the water, but it's also the defense mechanism. So you can imagine a big rodent is not very fast or effective at protecting himself. So what he really has is his tail, and what he'll do is he'll smack the water and make a really loud sound in order to scare the animal out of its way. I forgot one really important part of the beaver, and that is its castor sacs, which produce an oil. And those are located towards the tail near like the anus of the beaver. And they produce an oil, and that beaver uses it. So it uses its claw on its back feet, and it brushes that oil through all of its fur. And that is what gives the beaver like a weatherproof coat. So it's not going to get wet inside. It won't be cold because it's going to be repelling the water. And also the smell of the oil that is secreted from those glands is what we as scientists are able to do. We smell that, and that is how we can tell if the beaver is a male or a female based off of how the oil smells. So male beavers kind of smell like motor oil, and female beavers kind of smell like more of like a rotten cheese kind of smell. So it's really cool. And then also those beaver glands and those oils can be used for medicinal purposes or medicine, which is what Native Americans used it for. So reset up my camera. So why are beavers and salmon those really good friends? So we talked about that beavers build dams, but what's the point in building a dam? So beavers actually have an instinct that when they hear running water, they want to stop it. So beavers will chew down trees. Do you think they eat the trees? No. Beavers don't eat trees, they just chew trees. They eat leaves. And they also like that really nice, like soft, kind of slimy part in between the bark and like the harder part of the wood, but they don't eat the full tree. So what they do is they'll chew down those trees, not just to keep their teeth nice and weighed down, but also to build a dam. So they'll fall those trees and then they'll drag them, and they're like engineers, right? So these guys can completely change the landscape. So if we have a fast river and a beaver, they're going to chew those trees down, they're going to lay those logs, and they're going to stack rocks and sticks and logs in order to make a dam. That way it's going to slow the water down, and all the water is going to pool up behind it. But how do they do that? Do you think they just pick a dam and they stay there forever? Kind of. So beavers, they will find a mate and they will stay with that mate for the rest of their life. So a female and a male beaver will meet. They will instantly start to build a dam. And once they build that dam, that water is going to slow down. And then they say, okay, we have a nice pool of slow water. Now we need to build ourselves a house. So then they'll build themselves a lodge. And a lodge is going to be a pile of sticks and rocks and mud in the middle of that beaver pond. And it's going to have 2 entrances on the bottom, so they have to swim under the water to get inside. There's also going to be a chimney in there for airflow too. So like I said, beavers are incredible engineers. So once they have their lodge or their dam built and then their lodge built, they're going to reproduce. And so beaver kits is what a beaver baby is called. They're called kits. They are so cute. They're born fully furred. Their eyes are open when they're born, and they'll stay inside that den. And the parents will just keep feeding them until they're big enough to venture out into the world. But you can imagine too, so if a beaver has 5 kits, let's say, because they'll have a few a year, and they're all living in the den, how do you think that male and female beaver are going to feed all those kits and themselves if they just eat sticks? So beavers work so hard. So beavers actually have a 6-day work week, and they usually take a day of rest. And during those times, they're out gathering food, and they have a food cache, which is just like, think of it like a food storage or like a refrigerator. So they'll take the sticks and branches and leaves that they really like the tastiest, especially in spring when they're all growing. They'll take those and they'll jam them in the bottom of the dam and or under the water to keep them fresh and cold and so they don't rot. And then in the winter, when they can't go out and find food easily, they'll just swim to their cache, take some of that food, and bring it back into their lodge to eat it and to feed their young. So, like we said before, beavers do you think they're faster on land or in water? These guys are exceptionally faster in water than they are on land. They're very slow and a very easy target on land. But a target for who? Who do you think would want to eat a beaver? Well, they're very fat and furry, and probably tasty if I was a really hungry bear or a coyote. What about humans? Do you think humans were predators for beavers? We're not as much now, but we used to in the 1940s really harvest beavers for their fur in order to make hats. Because like I said, they have that really thick outer coat, but that undercoat is so soft and so warm. So it was highly sought after. And there was a time where beavers were overhunted, so their population was hurting because humans were trapping them in order to keep and harvest the fur. And then too, you can imagine that beavers and humans might not get along because like I said, beavers cut down trees and they're really good at it. They can cut down a really big tree about this big around in about 5 minutes. So that can do a lot of damage if you have trees in your yard or if you have an orchard where trees grow. But there's ways that humans and beavers can coexist and live happily together. So humans can protect their trees, or there's sometimes beaver relocation where they'll take the beaver and move it to somewhere where it's not going to bug humans too much. Okay, I know I'm at a little bit of a weird angle, but we are going to talk about how those beaver dams are so important to salmon. So here I have a log that was chewed on by a beaver. You guys can see all of their teeth marks. So if you can imagine, this was standing straight up and the beaver chewed around it, got all that good stuff underneath. Here's a littler one. You guys can see, maybe, see those chew marks on it. So now we have Barkley here, and here is a river. And what Barkley is gonna do is he's gonna build a dam. So he's gonna take sticks, and what he's gonna do is he's gonna want to stop the water. So he's gonna lay these down, and the water is going to stop flowing. So the water is flowing this way. What do you think is gonna happen to the water upstream? So what happens is it starts to fill up, right? So now all this water is slowing down on the way down, and we are creating a beaver pond. Now, do you think that the water in a beaver pond is moving fast or moving slow? The water in a beaver pond is moving pretty slow. And that's really good for those little baby salmon because they're not very good swimmers yet. And also we can think about this dam is filtering water through. So when we did the Enviroscape, we learned about different like roots and riparian zones. So the area along a creek, those roots act like a filter. So this is actually going to filter some sediments out too. So it's going to be nice and slow, calm water for those little fish to live in. And also, when I talked about a cache, I don't know if it made a lot of sense. So, like what Barkley would do is he would take something he loves, like these leaves or branches, small branches, remember not like whole trees, and he'll shove them underwater in the base of his dam, and then it'll stay nice and fresh. And then he'll probably build a lodge in his beaver pond where him and his mate and all their kits can live until the kits are old enough, a few years old. Then they'll wander out on their own and find their own beaver mate and do that whole cycle over again. So we've talked a lot about how beavers and salmon really have a great relationship with each other. But what other animals do you think would really benefit from having a beaver dam and a beaver pond around? What about migratory birds or ducks and geese? They're probably going to like that slow water. Also, animals that just want to get a drink of water, right? Would you rather drink from water that's flowing really fast or water that's still in a cup? So sometimes it's easier for animals to drink in that slower water too. Also, animals like turtles are probably going to really love it. And another one is going to be insects or other bugs or smaller creatures that floating around too, which are going to be perfect salmon food. So it really just goes into having that great relationship and a really great ecosystem. And like we said too, and we saw the tablecloth that I used as the model of a river, when that dam was placed and that water kind of spread out, it's going to create more water and more flooded habitat for more animals to utilize and live in. So what I want you guys to do for this week's activity is I want you to kind of like build your own stream table and mimic how a beaver can alter an environment. So maybe you can collect some kind of like sand or rocks, and then you're going to use some water. And then what you're going to do is you're kind of going to build obstacles and try to funnel water in a certain direction and then just play around with it, right? So that way you can put some sticks there, try to make a dam, try to block it, see where water goes out, see if we're creating other channels in there. And then, yeah, I just really want you guys to kind of experiment and just play outside with water and what's around you. So thank you guys for listening to another week, and thank you again to Noah Be Wet for funding our series, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.